because if you really do, and if you really uh, paid enough attention to the sheet I sent yesterday, the read-only sheet, um, in which it included the sound devices and the literary devices, because we will continue talking about poetry in English literature and how it changed over time. So are you ready?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Are you awake enough to start our class?
Yes.
Yeah. Good. Before asking you to go to page 214 or like 213 in your textbook, before asking you to do this, I would really, I'd like to remind you a few things, or you can consider it as um, a summary of yesterday's class. Yesterday, we talked about the art of poetry. We talked about poetry in English literature and even in Arabic literature. And we gave examples to the uh, um, to the progress that happened with the language over time. The language, themes, stories, and even in the form of poems. If you also remember, we said that not only stories and novels or like even articles are only do are the only ways to express feelings, emotions, or even to tell a story. Sometimes a form of poetry can do this. And we also said that sonnet is a form of poetry, is a restricted form of poetry that can tell a story, and it somehow deals with or like related to romanticism, in which in the romantic school, I mean the school of art that expresses feelings and emotions and compares the human emotions to nature. We also said that a sonnet is a restricted form of poetry, and we said that it must be of 14 lines, though some writers or some poets try to extend it to 16, but it's not really approved by critics all over the world. So a sonnet must be a 14-line stanza or 14-line poem. We said that we do have different types and different kinds of poetry or of sonnets. We have the Italian sonnet. We said we have the Shakespearean sonnet, which is the most famous kind of sonnet in English literature, though Shakespeare is not the inventor. Yesterday, one of you, I think it was Riman, asked about the origins of sonnets and who was the first one to invent it. Sonnets were invented, Yariman, in Sicily, and like it was mainly a Roman thing, as you said. The first inventor of the modern sonnet was in the 16th century, and they used it as, especially in religious courts in Sicily. Shakespearean sonnet is the most popular, the most common for those who study English literature, though he's not the first. These were the main points that we talked about yesterday. But before we go, Sarah, Sarah Abdulmanam, are you there? Sarah, Sarah, you're there?
Yes, miss. Sorry, the mobile hanging.
That's fine. Is it really that your birthday is today?
Really, it was yesterday.
Wow. So, happy birthday, Yasara.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. And like, I really wanted to like, uh, I wanted you to get to know each other because, you're a newcomer in our school, and um, I thought that maybe the others can say something for you on your birthday, and since you're a newcomer and you haven't gotten the chance to see them or meet them, girls, what would you like to tell her? Wish her something on her birthday.
I wish you got happy life.
I wish you get everything you ever desire.
Thank you. Thank you for your nice words.
Happy
Happy
birthday
birthday, Sarah.
to you.
Um,
Happy
okay. Thank you, girls.
dream come true.
Thank you. Thank you, and happy birthday, Sarah. I just girls try like I don't know what happens in the backstage or like the offstage scenes between you and each other, but I really want you to like maybe meet up with the new ones, maybe like I don't know, but you can be a really good class all together as like since I ever known you, the old ones, I know that you're always the newcomers. So thank you, girls. Thank you so much. Dareen and Lujena, they're saying happy birthday as well, Yasara. So going back to poetry, or going back to the sonnets in particular, um, as I said, a sonnet is a restricted form of poetry that it has to be 14 lines, and all the known shapes or all the known forms of poetry or of sonnets must be 14 lines, and they are not even in complete sentences, but they do tell a story. And they are either, or like either, some of you prefer to call it, some like 4 lines and then four and then two and so on, or 6 lines and then two at the end. But what's common in all the forms of sonnets is that the last 2 lines act as a summary, or act as a solution, or act as an ending to what came before, to the 12 lines that came before. Why do I consider them as a summary? I do so because it's originally a storytelling art through lines. So it tells a story. It gives an idea about human emotions. It gives a hint about human feelings. It tells a whole story of a person. So one way or another, you can consider it as a diary. You can consider it as a record of someone's life. What happens in this poem is that Sherman Alexei creates a whole new form of sonnet. No one did the same as Sherman Alexei. What he did is that he did not divide his poem, or he did not divide his sonnets into lines as the traditional form, yani. No, he wrote his lines next to each other. And this was weird. This was strange. This was mostly not acceptable by other critics. But especially in this poem, it has a purpose. It has a purpose for this poem. Let me remind you of the main title of our Unit 2. Unit 2 is titled as Outsiders and Outcasts. So this poem or this sonnet itself is considered to be an outcast of the poems because it's different, it's strange. People didn't accept it at the beginning. Uh, Alan, Nurhan, Riman, thank you. So I think Sunny should like screenshot it or something. Thank you.
Miss, I don't have the chat. Happy birthday, Sarah.
Thank you, Ghufran. Thank you so much. What else did I want to say? Yes. Let's fast read or listen to the sonnet, which is in page 214 in your textbook. And correct me if I'm wrong. Is it page 214?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. There is only one thing that I forgot to tell. In order to perform or in order to present a good critical analysis of any poem أو حتى of any piece of art, whether it's literary, something that is written or painted or composed, you have to understand the background of the author or of the composer or of the artist or of the writer, the personal background. If you don't understand the personal or the background of the author or of the poet, you will never be able to understand what he wants to say. You will never understand what the poem is trying to tell. So again, let's agree on one thing. In order to be able to criticize or to build an analysis for any piece of art, whether written, painted, or composed, you have to understand the background of the author, the background of the piece, like the historical piece itself, and the history, like the society. You have to understand the society. Sherman Alexei was a native Indian person, like a Native American. He was an Indian American. So Native Americans, as you already know, how much they suffered. Do you have an idea of how much they suffered?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, you can give us a hint about their life or what they went through.
The racism.
They were called as a weird people.
They were excluded out of
They
their
were
home.
called weird. They treated them differently.
They were excluded from their homes.
So exactly, they were pushed out of the homes of their tribes, and
Outsiders.
yes, they were considered by the white American man. They were considered as outsiders, though they are the landowners. So they are originally the landowners. They are the ones who own the land. And then what happened is that when the white man arrived, the new land, they pushed them out of their lands. They took their animals away, and instead of giving them the land, they built them some, what we call them, Indian reservations. Who has an idea of what I mean by Indian reservation? Does anyone have any idea of the Indian reservation?
I'm not sure, but you are not owning this farm anymore. Maybe they're
You're
under.
not owning.
It is a place or it is a land for the Indian tribe under the US.
Okay. Too close. What you said is too close. Judy, what do you think?
I think it was like when they basically put them in places specific, like specialized locations for them, and then they made them try to adapt to their ways. Maybe I don't know.
Perfect. That what really happened is that they took them away from the original land, and they put them in places like these places were customized, were created especially for them, and they called it legal places. Legal places, legal reservation approved by the US government, but not ruled by the government. So the Indian reservation was a minimized Indian society approved by the US government, but not ruled by the federal uh, agencies, not governed by the US rules. It is ruled by the native Indian tribe. So it was a tribe system, tribe rules, tribe customs, tribe traditions, but with the approval US government. And the people in the reservation were likely to get out of the tribe or to get out of the reservation. So they may be born, live, and die without even going outside this tribe. Some people manage to go out. Yes? Sorry? Yes, Riman?
Miss, are you lying?
I can't hear you, sorry.
Are you writing? Because I can't see anything.
No, I'm not writing. I'm just sharing the book, the website, Sava.
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
Can you see it, or just stop sharing then?
No, I can. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, okay, that's fine. So again, Sherman Alexei, our poet, the one who created this weird sonnet, the outcast sonnet, that is not considered to be as a traditional form of sonnet, ولا حتى Shakespearean ولا Italian. He invented his own form of sonnet that goes with the topic, the outside, like the outcasted topic, the outcast form of sonnet. But he managed to go out of this tribe or of this reservation once or twice in his whole life. He went out only when he became a famous writer. If he wasn't a famous writer, he wouldn't have gone out. He would stay there forever. So Indian reservation is a place where they gathered a tribe of Native Americans, and they kept them there. They have to go live their own lives, stick to their rules, stick to their traditions, and even stick to their way of governing the land. But they were still treated with racism. People did not get along with them. White man didn't really accept them in society. White man didn't really accept them in positions. And even when Sherman Alexei was considered as a famous writer, white people at that time, white people considered him as an outsider, and he shouldn't be there because English language is not his first tongue. All of this should draw a map in your mind or in your brain that tells you how this man suffered and how heavy the message he carries to the world is. This man goes against racism for all of those who are not accepted. Let's read Sonnet with Bird, and of course it starts with the background in the author's background. Let's start. Are you ready? So we will be moving from page 213 in 214 or 212, 214, if I remember it well, because I don't have the textbook. Let's start.
The author's background is 213, but the poem is 214.
Good, thank you. أيوة كده خليكوا صحيين معي. Okay, by the way, على فكرة, let me tell you something. The poetry collection was a part of the small group learning last year.
Alhamdulillah.
Let
me just that's a point that just point very that I wanted to tell. No, this part or the poetry collection was a small group learning last year. That means that your friends, هم now of grade 11, created, designed, explained, asked questions, and did everything related to poetry collection. But what was really outstanding was the work of the girls in 11B. هم the ones, is Jury there? Jury Serafi, is she there? Yes, she's there. The class of your sister. They did like more than an excellent job. And especially the team that took poetry collection um, to present the poetry collection. It was the team of Asil, Samara, Rafif, and Suha. They did, وكانت سلمى إيهاب كمان. I would never forget this. They did an awesome work. They did something like was very impressive with the poetry. So if we were in class, I would have asked you to prepare at least one of the poems in this poetry collection. But since it's our first poetry collection this year, I prefer to do it myself. But remember that when it comes later on, I'll ask you to be divided into teams and start doing your small group word learning task.
Inshallah.
Let's hope. Inshallah, in your dreams, Yamis.
Yes.
Inshallah, in your dreams. ما تحلميش يعني. Well, inshallah, and hopefully I pray that in the second semester, inshallah, we will be teaching in person. And if it does, wallah, ya Nur, and you will be the first one to present. Like, inshallah. Okay, so sonnet with bird. Again, this is the outcasted or like the refused or the denied form of sonnet, but it has a purpose and it serves a purpose. Let's listen to the sonnet and tell you. You have to tell me what you notice when reading this sonnet. Let's start. Here we go.
Sonnet with Bird by Sherman Alexei. Poetry. Background. The sonnet form is one of the most enduring poetic forms, having survived 5 centuries essentially unchanged. A sonnet follows a strict 14-line arrangement in a specific rhyme scheme. The final 2 lines of a sonnet resolve or summarize the preceding lines. In this poem, Sherman Alexei reinvents the sonnet, presenting one of the most traditional forms in an entirely new way. About the poet. Sherman Alexei, born 1966, grew up on the Spokane Indian Reservation in Washington State. As a child, Alexei suffered from seizures and spent much of his time in bed reading. After college, his career as a writer took off. Since then, Alexei has won numerous awards for his novels, stories, screenplays, and poems, including a PEN/Hemingway Award and the National Book Award.
Before we go, the PEN/Hemingway Award, like especially when I'm talking about Hemingway, Ernest Hemingway. Does any of you know who this man, Ernest Hemingway? Please say yes. No one says yes, right?
Yeah,
Ernest,
he is an American journalist
yeah,
who wrote short stories and and he was a novelist, I think.
he
I
was
read about him before.
That's true. He was a novelist and he was American. So if when I talk about American writers, then you have to understand that what's common between the American writers is the easy language.
Yeah, yes.
So unlike the traditional English writers, who use some sophisticated word or some sophisticated language. So Ernest Hemingway is one of the most famous or the traditional
I think
American
one
writer.
that book prize in lecture in 1900 something. I don't
He,
know.
one of his masterpieces is The Old Man and the Sea.
Yeah, we talk in the school.
Yes, The Old Man and the Sea is very famous and has been translated into almost all the languages, and it was even like it was it was made as a movie, I think, and an English one, and lots of Arabic writers inspired the main theme from The Old Man and the Sea, and they created their own novels in Arabic literature. You may go
Yeah.
find lots of things about Ernest Hemingway, but what was really common is that he used symbolism in most of his writings, and he used to deliver his message through symbols in writing. So Ernest Hemingway is a famous American writer, actually considered to be his father, one of the fathers or like the original writers of English, American one. Sorry to interrupt, but here comes the sonnet.
Sonnet with Bird by Sherman Alexei. 1. 17 months after I moved off the reservation, and on the second plane flight of my life, I traveled to London to promote my first internationally published book. 2. A Native American in England. I imagined the last Indian in England was Maria Tallchief, the Osage ballerina who was once married to Balanchine. An Indian married to Balanchine. 3. My publishers put me in a quaint little hotel near the Tate Gallery. I didn't go into the Tate. Back then, I was afraid of paintings of and by white men. I think I'm still afraid of paintings of and by white men. 4. This was long before I had a cell phone, so I stopped at payphones to call my wife. I missed the intensity of a conversation measured by a dwindling stack of quarters. 5. No quarters in England, though, and I don't remember what the equivalent British coin was called. 6. As with every other country I've visited, nobody thought I was an Indian. This made me lonely. 7. Lonely enough to cry in my hotel bed one night as I kept thinking, I am the only Indian in this country right now. I'm the only Indian within a 5,000-mile circle. 8. But I wasn't the only Indian. I wasn't even the only Spokane Indian. 9. On the payphone, my mother told me that a childhood friend from the reservation was working at a London pub. So I wrote down the address and took a taxi driven by one of those cab drivers with extrasensory memory. 10. When I entered the pub, I sat in a corner and waited for my friend to discover me. When he saw me, he leapt over the bar and hugged me. I thought I was the only Indian in England, he said. 11. His name. And he died of cancer last spring. I'd rushed to see him in his last moments, but he passed before I could reach him. Only minutes gone, his skin was still warm. I held his hand, kissed his forehead, and said, England. 12. England, in our tribal language, now means, aren't we a miracle? And goodbye. 13. In my strange little hotel near the Tate, I had to wear my suit coat to eat breakfast in the lobby restaurant. Every morning, I ordered eggs and toast. Everywhere in the world, bread is bread, but my eggs were impossibly small. What bird is this? I asked the waiter. That would be quail, he said. On the first morning, I could not eat the quail eggs. On the second morning, I only took a taste. On the third day, I ate 2 and ordered 2 more. 14. A gathering of quail is called a bevy. A gathering of Indians is called a tribe. When quails speak, they call it a song. When Indians sing, the air is heavy with grief. When quails grieve, they lie down next to their dead. When Indians die, the quail speaks.
How do you feel?
Sad.
So, what's the tone of this poem?
Sad, depressed.
Lonely.
Yeah, lonely.
I don't know whether I'm the only one who got this feeling, but I had the feeling that he is literally the only man standing all by himself in a desert. I don't know whether any other person had the same feeling, but Sherman Alexei wrote the poem in a very odd, weird, strange, unacceptable form of sonnet, the sonnet or the form that he himself actually created in order to show how lonely he is, how lonely Native Americans are, like the Indian Americans are, and how lonely his form of art is. So loneliness is everywhere. The feeling of loneliness is everywhere. طيب, in the last two lines, lines 13 and 14, which we consider them as a summary of the whole sonnet, these two lines are the most impressive of all of them. Who can tell me, like, why do we consider them the most impressive ones?
Because
Is
Shai
that
said it's a poem.
the whole point of the story?
Because what?
They tell the whole point of the story.
They tell the whole story. They tell everything for this feeling, for the sharing, for um, seeking to find other people of the same traditions and so on.
Miss, the way he
He
compared
yes.
the way he compared the
Go.
quail with with the Indians, just amazing. I can't.
Right, isn't it? So, can we say that the quail is the main symbol in this poem?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me
Yeah.
tell you something. In English literature, a quail represents community. And if you go find information about quails and their societies, you would find that if you take a quail off his society or off its society or of its tribe, he dies. Did you know this information? When you take a quail of the group of the flock, it dies. The quail dies.
This is like the saying in موت مع الجماعة.
Yes, so the point is that he compares himself to the quail who has just been taken away from his tribe, from his traditions, and sent 5,000 miles away from his native land. And that he thought that he was the only Native American or the Indian American in that place. When he knew that there was another one from the same tribe in the same place, he was amazed by the fact that he's not the only Indian in this place. But what sadly happens is that his only friend passed away. This is why he went again to his feeling of loneliness, to the feeling that he is an outcasted person, he is a rejected person by society, even if no one actually gave him the feeling of rejection. But he used to get this feeling from the very first moment he was there in the reservation camp. He was considered as an outsider. From the very first moment he went outside this reservation, he was considered as an outcast. This is why he came up with this new, extraordinary form of sonnet that is still 14 lines, but next to each other. If you pay attention, you would have found that it's narrative form. It tells a story. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the poem Sonnet with Bird with Sherman Alexei is a narrative poem that tells a story about a person, and the narrator is the poet himself, and it tells about his own personal experience. This is why it should make it so close to your heart. Like, let's see what has been written in here. Can you see the screen? The PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. The background and critical analysis of sonnet with bird, that's in page 213. Again, the sonnet is a one stanza 14-line poem written in iambic pentameter and is one of the most enduring poetic forms. And people, since we said that sonnets were mainly invented for the religious courts, they were done or they were created based on the iambic pentameter because it represents the heartbeats. Dudum, 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 and so on. So one unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable that represents, or like it has the same music as the heartbeats. This is why it was religious or very religious. The final two lines of a sonnet resolve or summarize the preceding lines. Sherman Alexei reinvents the sonnet in an entirely new way, as this poem deals heavily with the ideas of feeling lonely and feeling like an outcast. The thought of being the only Native American in England made Sherman feel like an outcast. Even the format of the poem itself pushes forward the narrative of feeling like an outsider or like an outcast, because it almost feels like the rejected form of a sonnet, the form that doesn't fit in. It's not like any sonnet, and you will never find any sonnet similar to this one. The sonnets usually divided into separate lines. This is not. The last two lines could be considered the most interesting part of them. In line 13, he describes how, when he first arrives in England, he is served quail eggs, which to him were very foreign, were very strange, were very odd. But as days progress, he starts to get adapted, to get used to eating them, that he even orders more. In English literature, a quail represents support in community. So when he is served quail eggs, it's as if he is like it represents how lonely he is and how lonely the quails are. We can also consider line 13 as a representation of Sherman's whole journey in England and the gradual change, the gradual process that he goes through to adapt to his new society. What else is there? Yes, I said that the literary devices in any poetic piece is what makes it, or what brings it to life. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Who remembers what do I mean by literary devices?
Like similes, metaphors, idioms, like that, I guess. Yeah.
In symbolism.
Yeah.
In symbolism. Type. These are the literary devices. Who remembers what do I mean by the sound devices?
Repetition.
Like onomatopoeia, assonance, alliteration.
Assonance, alliteration, onomatopoeia. What else?
Lujana said repetition.
Repetition as well. Yes, that's true. Everything that relates to the sound. And let me add one more thing before we go on. In
Also
poetry,
the rhyme.
we do, and the rhyme, the rhythm, or like the rhythm and rhyme scheme. True. Anything that deals with the sound, anything that deals with the music is there in poetry. Even
Yeah, I think
when
there's
we talk about,
a rhyme in this poem.
even what? Wait, what? Sorry.
I think there is an internal rhyme in this poem.
There's music at the end, especially in in
Yeah.
line 14.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a parallel structure, like the short sentences and then followed by periods in the same line, in the same poetic line, creates music.
Yes.
The main literary device in this sonnet is symbolism, and I hope you're taking down some notes. The most famous and the most important literary device in the sonnet is symbolism. The main literary device used in the sonnet is symbolism, as explained in the last slide, the one that we had before. The quail comes to represent support and community and protection. If a quail is taken away from his original tribe or original flock, then it's considered to be as dead. You're taking him out of his secure area. Same feeling as the feeling that Sherman Alexei had. Like, quick reminder كده, let's refresh our memory with the poem. Why did he go to London? Can someone read the answer?
Speaker
The
goes
speaker goes to London promotes his new book.
Okay. Whom does the speaker meet in London?
the speaker meets his
The
old
speaker.
friend Aaron in London.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. We're done with the poem, with the sonnet. Is it everything? No. Let me just try to find something. Elliptical. No, elliptical would take a lot of time, and we don't really need elliptical. Oh, let me remind you of something. Fences. The last poem. The last poem of Fences would be like, I will ask for a paraphrase for this poem. I'll ask you to paraphrase Fences, the last poem.
Yeah. Okay.
Dead silence.
You
may go. You may go. Yeah, you may go find information about it online. You may even go find the paraphrasing online. طبعاً إحنا مش هنضحك على بعض. Most of you, when we ask about paraphrasing, when we ask you to paraphrase something, you just go copy paste it from the internet. We already know that. Not only paraphrasing, I know that.
على حسب البوست.
How honest. Like, come on, us, like, we're not going to like fool each other. I used to be a student once, and I used to do this, honestly, like, frankly speaking. And I know that already, like, most of you do this, not only with a paraphrasing, but even when I ask for like a specific questions, or ask for specific tasks to be done, you just go copy paste the same exact lines from Britannica. You go copy paste the same exact lines in the Wikipedia, from academia. You go to all of these websites that we want. What?
إحنا
استغفر الله استغفر
Angels.
الله.
والله العظيم. Let me tell you something. That one of you,
Stop
by
repeating
mistake,
it.
copied the link of the page.
Oh my god. يا جماعة عايزين.
I think no one do that. This is so obvious to copy the post from Wikipedia.
Yes. Yeah, like that one person copied the
أنا
link.
حتى لما أجي
يعني
أنزل بغير الخط كده يعني عشان ما يبان.
Yeah.
nah, she was too lazy to do any change. Even like I don't remember what was the question, and she just copied the first few lines of Wikipedia and she pasted them. And like لحظها اللي مش ما كانش حلو, when I copied it in my, when I opened it in a Word file, there was a name of a poet I remember, or of an author, and it was highlighted so that it takes you to another link.
Yeah, yeah.
You know
الإحراج
that
ده.
like it was a link. And then when I clicked it, I went directly to Britannica. One of the students actually last year, that was last year, and I would never forget this. When I asked her to use the concept, vocabulary, words, and sentences, she was too lazy to invent her own sentences. And what happened is that she went to one of the online dictionaries and she wrote the word. Well, the dictionary is Merriam-Webster, if you have it. Merriam-Webster is one of the most intelligent, in active, supportive websites or like dictionaries you will ever get to. It gives you the word along with sentences as examples to the word. So what happens that when I asked them to use some words in meaningful sentences, what she did was that she went to that Merriam-Webster and then she copied pasted the same exact sentence. And I didn't comment. To be honest, I said nothing. I checked it and I did correct, and I ticked it and I gave it back to her. What really irritated me, what really drove me to the edge is that, like, Miss, are my sentences correct?
ظهر الثقة فينا. Oh my god.
So يعني أنا سكت في الأول, like, come on.
That was so embarrassing.
Honestly, I couldn't help it. I couldn't help. So I told her, like, no matter how good teacher I am, do you really think that I would find a mistake in Merriam-Webster's sentences?
Miss Billahi, what was her reaction?
وش الأكل
She just
شرح
looked at me, like, she just looked at me and she said, like, how do you know?
Oh my god.
Like, come on, girl. I was a student once. And I'm not very old. Do you think that when the distance learning is going on and the process of, like, I can't see any of your faces right now, don't you really think that when I ask a question, some of you already have the phones and go type and Google the question right away and give me the answer, like, at the same exact moment? I can, like, come on. And I'm totally fine. Let's not deny it. I'm totally fine with this. Even if you go find the information or find a piece of information, like, instantly, I absolutely have no problem with it. Honestly. But what I care for the most is that you have to keep the information stuck to your mind. Believe it or not. أصل إحنا مش هنضحك على بعض. I can't see you. I cannot see you. And I cannot control what you do behind the screens. But try to be honest with yourself. If you go find an information during a class, I'm totally okay. And I'm not calling it a cheating or something. I'm not. But at least keep what you searched for, keep what you looked for in mind. Don't forget it once we end the class. Write it down. Take down some notes. Learn. This is the point. This is what I'm trying to say. Learn. Not just to be educated. لا, learn. So I'm totally fine. Even if you go find sentences or paraphrased poems by other people على e-notes, e-learning, Britannica, Merriam-Webster, كل دي الwebsites can give you actual paraphrasing of most of the English poems. I'm totally okay with this. But you have to stick to the original points of paraphrasing, and we will come to talk about it later on. Remember that these websites or some of the search results that appear to you are written by students of your age. So not 100% of what they write is correct. Not 100% of what they write is correct. So instead of copying, pasting without even reading, read and edit.
This is paraphrasing the book.
Sorry?
Is the paraphrasing the book?
No, it's not a homework because we haven't read the poem yet. But until it happens, or until it comes the time that I ask you to paraphrase fences, because I will ask for fences to be paraphrased. When the time comes, I just want you to read what do I mean by paraphrasing and get it ready before we go there. To get prepared with the concept of what I mean by paraphrase.
This is the
Yes.
difference between analyzing and paraphrasing.
A big difference. A big difference. In paraphrasing, you write when you paraphrase, you write it with the same exact form. And if it's a poem that is written of short lines, the paraphrasing has to be in the form of a poem with short lines برضو. But you write the equivalent word for each word in the poem. Like you change as many words in the poem as possible. You write the synonyms for the word, yet it
Yeah.
has to give the same feeling at the end.
Yeah.
We will explain it later on, but now we're done with the sonnet. Now we're done with the sonnet with Bird. Hope that you took down some notes. And hope that you now understand what do I mean by an outsider and what do I mean by an outcast. And the main thing in this sonnet was the symbolism when he compared himself to the quail, when he compared the quails in their group of quails or like flock of quails to the tribe. The last two lines, lines 13 and line 14, are like the miracle of the whole poem. Also, the word England symbolizes something. England, girls, as he said in our tribal language, England now means aren't we a miracle, and it means goodbye at the same time. Who can tell me England was mentioned twice in this poem, or like in two positions in this poem. One at the very first beginning in line 1, and it was also mentioned in the end when his friend dies. In each of the positions, it represents something. Who can tell me something about it? And I let you go in peace. The word England was mentioned twice, and it had two meanings. Do we have any symbolism behind the word England? And I mean the word, not the country.
Can I say?
Go, give it a try.
I guess يعني in the beginning he mentioned England like a name with like with a like was confused. لا خطأ خلاص.
Why go?
لا خلاص خلي جوري راح عادة.
Go, Yuzuri.
Okay, so I'm just I'm kind of clueless, but so maybe it's like since I don't know, I feel like it could represent the fact that they're a miracle because weren't they kind of like Native Americans? Weren't they excluded like from England, I guess, and then they were like people from England came to America and then they basically put them in Indian reservations. So maybe the fact that they're in England now represents like a miracle of them being there.
Perfect.
Isn't it
Perfect.
Goodbye.
And what does it represent at the end?
Goodbye, I think.
The goodbye. It came at the beginning as the miracle of the Indians who have always been kept in the reservation and not accepted by the world. Now they are spokesperson and they're famous writers and they can travel everywhere in the world, even if 1,005 miles away from the tribe, which is considered to be a big deal. And that was the miracle that happened at the beginning. What happened at the end is that the word England represented the other sad meaning of the word in English, in this Indian tribe language. Sorry, it when it represents the farewell, the goodbye, the sadness or the sorrow of losing um, oneself or one tradition. That's it for today. We kind of covered everything in the sonnet. I want you to take down the notes we talked about and read it once more, especially lines 13 and 14. And if you come up with any new idea, let me hear it from you on Sunday, inshallah. The coming week we don't have any quizzes, but the week after we will be having a quizzes. يعني a quiz يعني week 14 inshallah, not the coming week. I'll remind you again next week inshallah, بس يعني بقول لكم من الأول, not the coming week, the one after we will be having a quiz.
About Sonnet.
It would be about what?
Yes, it will be about the poetry collection.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you
Right.
so much. Enjoy your weekend.
You too.
And goodbye.
Thank you, Miss.
Miss, thank you.
Thank you, Miss.
Thank
You're
you,
most
Amber.
welcome. Thank you, girls.
Have a good day.
Bye.
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 You too.
Bye, Miss.
Bye bye.